You're listening to Living in Spain podcasts with David Wright.
Hi guys, my name's David Wright and welcome to another one of my podcast show. Today I'm going to be talking about the reasons many people fail in Spain. So this is my 18th year living and working in Spain, and I've run a few different businesses here. I've bought and sold properties, I've built my own house, and I've run a small building business here and worked for many clients on properties and their businesses here. So many people who move here do well and love it here, but as many fail, and here below are a few of my views based on what I've seen and why I think they fail. I will give three cases here, but I feel these three cases sum up most of the cases. Case number one, we are opening a bar in Spain. So, several years ago, I was asked to renovate a bar here for a couple who had bought it with their son and daughter-in-law. It was a great location right on the beach on the boardwalk in town. A husband and wife ran a pub in the UK, but it was not doing very well, and they sold up everything and came here with their son and daughter-in-law to run a bar here. Then when I first met them, they were all so excited about the bar they had just bought and asked me what I thought about the bar. It was in a fantastic location with great views over the beach and the seafront, and in the summer months was absolutely packed with people walking past every day. Even when the weather was overcast, there was always people walking past. This was a real prime location bar. I had seen this bar up for sale for many years with no takers, and before it was closed up for sale, it was never really that busy. One old lady used to run it. I think she was German. I told them at the bar that it was a great spot, and after just a few hours I saw my major problem: no electric points. It was an old bar and the electricity here was very basic in the bar. It was only just 2 power points in the very basic type of kitchen, I think, if you can even call it a kitchen. But there was a few other power points in the front of the bar and dotted throughout the place. But these were old power points with dodgy wiring, and they all really needed to be sorted out. At first, they didn't think it was a problem, and we investigated further. Personally, I understood this problem. I'd come across it before and knew that it wasn't going to be easy to find a solution to. After I took out all the units in the kitchen, I found that there was only the electric supply was very basic, and there was only 2 power sockets behind the units. They needed a lot more for the things that they had in mind for the bar. It's quite normal here that older properties you buy here in Spain will need an upgrade on the electric, or at least the electric meter running in from the street, if not the main cable as well. And this was the case here. When I got to the electric company and asked them to come and have a look, they sent a rep down, and he had a look at the fuse board. That was the first thing he looked at, scratched his head and said, no, this is out of date, old fashioned, and needs upgrading. They looked at the power points and said, how can we solution it? They wanted to put in extra appliances and stuff like that. Absolutely no way would it take it. It needs to have a new fuse board. So that was the final bottom line. Okay, so give us a quote for a new fuse board. Not that simple, he said. They need a new cable because the fuse board cable is not uprated enough. They would need a cable in from the street to supply the new fuse board before you even start. And that means a project license, a building license to get the work done, to dig up the street outside with permissions and licenses and taxes to pay. After a few days, they called me and we went and picked up a quote which they were giving us to run a new cable, which was about 18 metres from the supply to the front of the bar that they bought. That's including digging up the street, putting the new cable in, and a new fuse board. It was €16,500 just for that. That's before they start doing anything else. So the cable for the street and the fuse board, €16,000. Now this is a big shock to them. It wasn't really a shock to me. I didn't expect it to be quite that much, but I've come across this problem before. So it was a problem before I even started. The clients had, although they were shocked, they had some money put aside to do up the bar, but this was way more than they anticipated, and we were going to have to come up with another solution. So in the end, we decided that gas appliances would be the way to go, without uprating the fuse board, which in my personal view was a mistake, but there you go. So we ended up getting gas supply bottles and gas everything, including the fridge. So they had to rearrange the kitchen entirely to accommodate all these gas appliances. And it's surprising what you can get. Even the fridges surprised me. The fridges and units for the cooler units can all be run off gas. But this is all complicated and not as straightforward as it sounds. But anyway, we found a solution to the problem and we made it work with gas. If they had just done some basic look around first when they were buying the place, or even had a basic survey done, they would have found this out. They would have known in advance. And maybe that is why the bar was not snapped up by local Spanish people in the first place. Anyway, after a few weeks, all the work was done and up and running, and they told me that they decided to not do tapas at the bar, even though the other people were. This was a big mistake in my opinion, as bars in the street on both sides were all doing tapas, and here in Almeria, if you buy a wine or a beer, you get a choice off the menu of a tapa that's normally cooked to order. So deciding to not do any tapas here was, personally I feel, a big mistake, especially when you've got bars both sides of you are doing tapas. So you're going to go out for a beer or wine, and you've got a chance of having a beer or wine at a price in one bar, or go to another bar where you get the same beer and wine at the same price, plus you get free food as well. So pretty much of a no-brainer really, especially for me, and I think people like freebies here. So not doing the tapas, big mistake I believe. 3 months later, after all the work was done and everything, I passed by one day. I was walking by that area and I passed by and saw a Spanish guy standing in the doorway. He was working there for the owners as a waiter, and I said to him, where's all the staff? Where is everybody? They're on the beach, he said. On the beach? I said, what are you doing here? So he said, yeah, they've employed me to be the waiter here. So there's 4 of them, 4 people, all taking a wage each week out of the bar, and they're now paying a 5th person to run the bar for them because they didn't speak Spanish, and he was basically doing all the ordering and doing all the inventory and stuff and the taxes and the accounts and pretty much everything for them, and they're on the beach, all 4 of them on the beach. So that's not getting off to a good start, is it? Anyway, 6 months later, the bar was closed up for sale and no sign of anybody, no sign of them. And it was about a year later that I actually bumped into this waiter guy again, and I spoke to him and asked him about the bar and what had happened, and he said it was pretty obvious to him and everyone else really. They didn't have many customers coming in the bar, and the husband and wife and the son and daughter-in-law couldn't agree on who would work nights and mornings and things like that, and they all like to have a little bit of a drink. So it was very complicated, 4 people trying to take a wage out of a bar that's not really making enough to survive anyway. It was really doomed from the start. So that was the running a bar in Spain story. And the problem is that small bars like this in Spain, you have to work hard at it, and it can't really support 4 people, especially if they're not willing to work all the hours here. Case 2. We bought a house in the countryside. As many people who move to Spain, my dream was also have a nice house in the country away from the crowds. So I met a couple here, a British couple in their early 60s, who had sold up everything in the UK, and they had bought this lovely house in the countryside, about 45 minutes drive from Almeria coast. Their nearest neighbour was about a 15-minute walk away, and the grounds were lovely, filled with olive trees, fruit trees, and a bit on a hillside with fantastic views. It really was a lovely place. My job here was to renovate the kitchen. That was very outdated, and some small jobs around the house, bit of painting and decorating, stuff like that. The lady didn't really drive, and the guy was having some trouble with an old back injury that had created some problems for some time. They loved the place, and rightly so. It was very nice and so quiet up there. Beautiful place in the countryside, it really was. A few weeks later, I had done all the work. I was called back to do a few other little jobs around the house. The guy's back was not so good, and he had stopped driving and was looking to sell the car. They had met an English couple a local bar that lived about 15 minutes drive away from their house, and were running them around to the shops once a week and doing things like that for them. They didn't speak Spanish and were not learning, and these were problems when people didn't come to when people come to the house, or when they had letters that needed to be answered, things like that. A daily running of living here in Spain is difficult if you don't speak Spanish, so they were reliant on this new couple to not only run them around but to answer letters and do the odd phone calls for them. Moving out into the sticks sounds great, but you really need to think about it, how it may be later on in life, especially if you don't speak the language. I found out some years later that this guy's health was not so good, so they sold up at a loss and moved back to the UK. Maybe a smaller place near all amenities would have been better for this couple. They would have been maybe better off to stay in the country, in a place near the beach, or where there's at least people that can help them, and then do the trips out into the countryside and enjoy the countryside as a sideline. Buying in the wrong area. This is case 3. Finding the right area for you is always a challenge, but one of the most important decisions that you will have to make here. So this British couple in their early retirement had bought a 3-bedroom house on a community plot with a community pool and grounds, just 2 streets back from the beach near the main town here in Almeria. The house was only about 10 years old and quite modern and needed nothing doing really. My job here was again just a few small jobs and a new shower cubicle in one of the bathrooms. This ended up being one of my best clients over the years, and I did many jobs in the house and the grounds for them over the years and got to know them pretty well. A very nice couple. The problem they had was that the community pool was just yards from the back entrance. Their back terrace of the house was overlooking the grounds of the pool, and the kids screaming and splashing all day was making it hard for them to enjoy relaxing or reading a book on their terrace, and that was their only really outside bit of space they had. They also had a neighbour who worked most days and left his dog on the terrace to bark all day, which became a real problem for them over time. What was their dream home slowly became a bit of a nightmare for them, and they didn't really have the money to move, as they had invested pretty much everything in this house. Years later, they did sell up and move into a small apartment on a top floor. They had spent so much money on the house and doing it up that they lost most of that when they sold it. Then, just as the house was ready, they had to do it all again on this new place, this new apartment. So, conclusion here is, it's very difficult to get it right all of the time and try and think about all the things that you need. But just some basic research into all of these cases would have saved all of these people thousands of euros and time and stress. If it's your dream to move to Spain, then I always say just do it now. Go for it. If it's your dream, go for it now. Don't wait. Time is so precious and we have so little of it in the scheme of things really, but try and do all the things and try and think of the different scenarios that might affect you later on in life. Do your research and then more research, and research locals who have lived there. Find these people, ask them personally what they think and what it's like. Get to know firsthand people who are living in that area and what the area is like before you commit yourself long term. There are thousands of people that have moved here to Spain and love it here, but for most of them it was not luck. They did their research and then more research. They had a few trips, they saw places, they got to know people, and it was hard work, and it's still hard work for them. So it's not all luck, guys. It is about the effort that you put into it. Personally, I've made many mistakes here and had to learn from them, and many of them have cost me some money to get over as well. But I'm now living in my dream house in a perfect place for me, and without never wanting to live anywhere else really. I really feel that this is the perfect place for me, but it's taken a long time to get to where I am now. A lot of hard work and a lot of research. Even though I thought I did a lot of research at first when I first moved here, I should have done more. Make lists, do research, a lot of research, and get to know just where you are going. Oh, and it goes without saying, learn Spanish. My number one tip here is always learn Spanish. I hope these tips have helped you to avoid some of the mistakes that others make here. Spain is a fantastic way of life. It's a fantastic place to live, but do as much looking into things as you can, and write lists, make lists up, think of all the things that you think you will need and you might need, and these lists open up your mind to other things and other opportunities and things you may not have thought about. So guys, learn from other people's mistakes, and you can save yourself a lot of time, money and stress. So I hope these tips have helped. If they have, just leave a little comment at the end of this. Thanks very much.
If you have enjoyed this podcast by David Wright, then you will love his new books. Out now on Amazon and Kindle, packed with money-saving tips and information on living and working in Spain. Just go to livinginspainbooks.com. David also has a popular blog for expats in Spain. Come and take a look now at britishexpatsinspain.com.